Hey, everybody, this is Brett Ingram, and this is the optYOUmize podcast, the show that helps entrepreneurs build their dream business and dream life. Today, we're talking with Dr. Victoria Rader, possibility coach and founder of You Too Shine. She's a globally known transformational speaker and pioneer of quantum personal development. I'm super excited because I'm always fascinated about exploring our potential as people and helping people to live the life of their dreams. So, with that, welcome, Victoria, and thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you today. So, I have a lot of stuff I want to ask you about, but let's start off with your personal story. Can you just give us a sense of, just from a career perspective, how did you start your career?
I think involuntarily was called to do that in a way. I was going through I was going through a very, very difficult time at some point in my life where on the surface the career was thriving. I was a top 1% of all agents, real estate agents in the US during the recession. I was the number one in Virginia. I had all the numbers. I had $28 million pending in sales. And meanwhile, there was just very difficult time at home. There was some injustices done. There was a very tense situation between me and my husband. I was homeschooling my kids. And in that year, in year 2013, as all of this is happening, I started losing people that I care for. Like literally one person a month. February, my aunt dies in
Oh,
Moldova. My mom and I fly out. Instant heart attack, unexpected. March, my uncle on the other side, and my cousin who I grew up with, a brother. And so, as all of this is unfolding, I had to really find hope beyond hope and come to terms and find peace with death as a part of life, and had to really accept it as a beautiful gift that frames the gift of life. And once I understood what this life really is and how all of the either accomplishments on one side or self-made or other-made problem on the other side limit and rob this life, I felt I had to share it. And so You To Shine was born as a company that helps you find your light and live your life so fully that you no longer worry about legacy because you leave a legacy of meaning behind you. And so that's kind of the journey of that. And by the end of 2013, I left real estate, walked out of the office, left all the pending sales to my broker, and went back into survival, starting from scratch, the coaching, spiritual and practical company.
so that's amazing. So you didn't actually, I talk to a lot of people and there's like a logical transition. It's oftentimes born out of a struggle or a challenge. So I think what you're focusing on, in terms of like the reason you chose to make the move makes total sense. But it's shocking that you went from one thing where you actually were also super successful at it. It's not like, oh, you were doing this thing, but you didn't really like it and you were struggling with that. You were doing really well. That takes a lot of courage to walk away from something like that. A lot of people, when they've established a career, are like, well, this is paying the bills. I'm not going anywhere.
Brett, I think the vision was there before. I actually went to real estate on a fling because in 2005 or 6, I took my kids to Greece. 2006, I took my kids to Greece. They were little. They were ages 4 and 8. And I was homeschooling them, and I figured the best way to teach them ancient Greece history was to go there. So I took my mom, and we went for 3 weeks. I was new out of Ukraine, just barely married to my husband, a few years back. So I came home, and he said, honey, it's great that you put everything on this little plastic thing, but unlike Ukraine, this is not debit. This is credit. We have no money. You got us into debt. So I literally at that moment said, okay, I know what I want. I want to continue being a mom to my kids. I want to show them the world and I need the money. I went to the all knowing Google and I literally Googled what is the fastest way to make money in America while being a stay home mom. And this is 2006 going to the heat of 2007. It just, of course, said real estate. Real estate was flying off the shelves. And so I started my journey into real estate licensing. Now, I'm very ironically wired as a very deep introvert. And the whole idea of talking to strangers and building a business sent me into sobbing every night. I mean, because it was like, it's a new skill, no neural receptors for the skill. But what I knew always was that you cannot succeed without having a coach, right? I did competitive sports in Ukraine, and so I got a coach immediately with Buffini and Company. And on an intake interview, I said, listen, I have a gift of making complex things simple. I know I am born to empower people by simplifying some of the most profound concepts. I don't know what they are yet, but I'm going to go succeed in this because I know I can simplify it. And so I got in, the market crashed. you know, Everybody was getting out of the market. And it was such a phenomenal opportunity because when you're in the middle of people running in a direction, or a direction driven by fear, opportunity always lies in the opposite direction. So there goes your first concept. When everybody runs in one way, you've got to pause and say, most people are fear driven. Fear always drives you away from opportunity. Turn around. Where's the opportunity? And so for me, I thought, oh, wow, all of these people that had sales with ease are now leaving. So the market share is opening. And it wasn't by any mean an easy transition because I lacked skills. So yeah, that's how that story unfolded. And I've kept my coach, Gail Pillian with Buffini all the way through real estate, and then I transitioned into building my company, get a bunch of mentors, still kept her until she retired. So yeah, I just believe in
That's
having.
remarkable. I have to say, kudos to you for recognizing the importance of a coach. One of the things, actually, professionally for me, is one of my biggest regrets is as a 17-year entrepreneur, I sort of rolled up the sleeves and figured everything out the hard way. I had opportunities to have mentors and coaches and things like that, but I never focused on building relationships. I focused on trying to get stuff done because I didn't understand the importance of that in the grand scheme of things. And when I look back on it, I realized I had it upside down. And that's one of the reasons I actually started the podcast was to share with other entrepreneurs, look, you're not alone. No matter how much of a challenge or struggle or whatever you're going through, other entrepreneurs have been there. They've done that before. And so it's important to know that you have to just keep going and work through it, and it will get better and you can achieve what you want to achieve. So but that's the other part of it. I want them to have the mentor I never had and be there where I can help provide that guidance and inspiration because it's lonely, it's challenging. So you did that, but also you overcame it. And I think one of the things that resonates with me about your story with that is the fact that what was driving you is you understood underneath it all that in order to do the things you needed to do and wanted to be able to do, you had to find a way to be able to generate enough money within the context of what limitations you had scheduling wise and everything else. And I'll tell you a funny story. So when I was in graduate school years ago, and my plan was to go into consulting. And we had my wife and I had our oldest son. He was little at the time, and so I would work full time during the day, and then I'd go into New York City for college at night, and I would get a break in between classes. So I called home on the break. I was grabbing a slice of pizza in my 15-minute break before I got to go back to class. I get home at midnight and I got to start the routine over in the next day. When I called home, she was upstairs reading our son a bedtime story and tucking him in. And I got this really hollow feeling because I started to feel as though, look, I'm going to go into consulting and I'm going to create this life for my family, but I'm going to be living out of hotels and flying around the country or the world. And sure, it could be a decent life, but I'm going to be creating this lifestyle and I'm not going to be a part of it because I'm not going to be able to be there. I'm going to be off working. And in that moment, I was 3 months away from graduation. I said, I don't want to do this. I actually don't want to do this. I got to find a way where I can generate an income from home so I could be there and be an active member of my family in addition to have that lifestyle. I want to be able to coach their sports. I want to be able to go to their games, feel, be a chaperone on field trips and do all these other things. And so in with that as the backdrop, working full time, going to graduate school, kid at home, mortgage, car payments already, that's when I started my business. And it was like an hour in the morning when I could do stuff, an hour late at night, and that's the only time I could find. But your story resonates with me because it was that drive behind it all. It was the reason why that made me willing to make those sacrifices. And it sounds like for you, to overcome, I mean, to be an introvert and you're in real estate, it's not a natural fit.
Nope.
So it's pretty amazing that you were able to do that. So wow, what an amazing story. So, um, okay, so one of the things that you've developed with You to Shine and the things that you've been working on now is a unique EFT technique. So for the audience, for anybody who doesn't even know what that is, can you give us an idea of what an EFT is in general? And then what are the specifics about your technique that make it so unique?
Yeah, absolutely. So, EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, which since 2001 has been recognized by the official psychology. APA thinks it's real, so it must be real as energy psychology. And so, what Emotional Freedom Techniques is, it's based on the ancient study of us being an energy field and the psychology study of exposure therapy. So combining the two, we all are energy. This is not woo woo, this is science, right? Underneath our matter consists of electrons, protons, neutrons that are constantly vibrating. When the energy flow is consistent, it flows through, in Chinese system, meridians or paths of energy flow. In Hindu system, it radiates through chakras or energy centers. They're just different ways to describe the quantum field or the energy field that each one of us is. When that energy is blocked, and it can be blocked by thought patterns. Why? Because thoughts are electric. Every time you have a thought, your brain produces an electric signal. A thought is an electric signal. We know that every time there is an electric signal, there is a magnetic field. That magnetic field is translated into the energy of emotion. So when you have repeating thoughts that create consistent emotions, and if those emotions are heavy and they're not processed out of the energy field that you are, your body stores them in different parts. If unaddressed, they first start as mental distress and anxiety, and with time develop into actual physical symptomatic diseases. When you look at English, which I love, dis-ease is lack of ease without ease. Disorder is without order. So we're already using the energy language to describe when there's lack of order of flow of healthy field. When there is lack of ease, we develop disease and disorder. So free energy EFT, when it comes in, it focuses on special points on your body that are on meridians. And by gently tapping on those points and repeating a certain trigger that would bring the energy of emotion or a thought pattern to the surface, it releases and grounds them. We are electromagnetic field. We are grounded, right? If you don't do it, but if you were to go to the electrical socket, it will only electrocute you if you are grounded and it goes through you. Isn't that fascinating? So by putting 2 feet on the ground, you can release the electrical charge of the emotion that is damaging to your body, to your mind. There's been a ton of studies. It is phenomenal for PTSD. They've done vet studies that are unprecedented. A lot of our clients, students, and instructors for our techniques are vets because they will have tried everything else, and all of a sudden they receive phenomenal release from the triggers that caused the PTSD. And so I've been using EFT for many years, and what I found, many people were coming in and saying it doesn't work for me, and I realized that I was naturally guiding them in a different way that I was taught. And when I looked around, nobody else was doing it that way. So we've developed it as a technique. And what is the difference? The original EFT was developed by a phenomenal man over 20 years. They were different. It started as TFT, thought field therapy, and then it developed by two other great men into EFT. And it is a powerful masculine energy technique. Masculine energy is the energy that allows the release. Healthy masculine energy creates healthy boundaries. Unhealthy goes to wars, right? It's the same thing. Its job is to clear the way. The healthy masculine energy is there to clear the way. Now, either for greatness or for destruction, depends on who's the energy in. But it was missing feminine energy, which is there to nourish and to fill the space that is created by masculine energy. And so what was happening, people would release the energy. But then one of the energy laws is universe abhors vacuum. The second you release something, something else will fill the vacuum. And without properly reprogramming and filling the space, it usually will default to the very next low frequency. So great, you released shame, now you went into guilt. You release guilt, now you're in apathy. Apathy, now you're in fear. Then you get to anger, and when you're in anger, you're like, forget it, this doesn't work, and it's over. And so people were being stuck. And so what we found is that once you use the foundational EFT to release, then you put one hand on your heart, one hand on your solar plexus, and you gently reaffirm through the heart installation into your heart whatever it is you are affirming in. The shift was so instantaneous and so powerful. And then we took the next step into Free Me EFT, and we added very powerful visualization technique to train your brain to associate the subconscious release with conscious understanding, so it no longer would fight you. There's a constant fight within each one of us between our conscious and subconscious. And so Free Me EFT adds to the phenomenal traditional EFT by filling the void and eliminating the inner struggle, just removing the conflict. And it's fascinating that you're asking that, because we're finally at a point where the pain of expansion is causing us to restructure, and we're changing the process of certification and mainstreaming it. It's just that modality, as most things in my life, were prompted by people I love and care. So many years ago, 10 years ago now, a dear friend, client, who is now the CEO for my company, was saying, you got to certify people in this. You got, for 2 years, create certification. I want to be able to do that. So I want to give her a shout out. It was Marla Ballard, was somebody who was like, you've got to do this. So we've created the original certification that way. And then a group came in and said, hey, we now want to teach it, create certification to teach. And so it's been really need-based and inspired modality that's been born. And now that I have instructors in many countries, they're like, go to the next level, give us manuals in our languages. And so it's just it's gorgeous to see it happening and expanding, and I'm really humbled by it, to be a small instrument of inspiration to that. So
That's
yeah.
amazing, and I love the way I appreciate your really thorough yet very easy to understand explanation. I think a lot of times when we get into things that we're not familiar with, if people get too technical or too jargony with it, it's hard for somebody to access what exactly you're talking about. But you put it in such simple terms, it's easy to visualize and understand exactly what you're talking about and the power of it. I'm curious. I'm curious too about how this relates or correlates with the idea, because I'm not an expert in any of this stuff. I haven't actually invested a lot of time or knowledge in it so far, but I am fascinated by it. And one of the things that I did learn early on, though, about us being sort of magnetic energy and everything, is that the idea that you attract like energy with the energy that you put out. So, and I've felt this, experienced this in my own life, where if I'm in a grumpy mood and I go out and I sort of have my head down, everybody seems a little mean. when I go to the store and I'm smiling and saying hi to people I don't even know, everybody seems really nice. And it there does seem to be some sort of an attraction effect like that. Is that what your experience is as well?
So there are two, in your one observation, there are two very powerful moments there, and I wanted to bring attention to both of them. So one is a mental faculty of perception. So we have five senses, we study the world. I see, hear, taste, touch, and then we have six mental faculties that actually create our reality. The first mental faculty is perception. How you perceive is what you perceive. And it's very simple. You put dark glasses on, you go out, everything is dark. You put yellow glasses on, you go out, everything is yellow. We understand it with our physical sight, it's true with our emotional insight. If I'm happy, everything is an opportunity. If I'm depressed, everything is draining. So that part of is a perception. And perception is the first mental faculty for a reason. Because when you perceive yourself to be the miracle you're born to be, then you can imagine a miraculous life. Imagination number two. Then you can intuit into it. That's intuition. Then and only then you can reason in favor of perceiving, imagining, and intuiting, not against it. Most people struggle with reasoning against their intuition. Then you remember the talents and the divine callings you've come to be on this earth. And then you develop will to pursue them. A lot of the people who look successful in life have mastered those to a certain degree subconsciously. So when you look at those six mental faculties, each one of them is opened by universal laws. That's the second concept. What you were referring to is colloquially known as the law of attraction, which really is a reflection of the law of resonance. The law of resonance is gorgeous. When you have five guitars in the room and you continually string one string on one guitar, depending on the distance that the wave from the string movement travels, all of the guitars will start humming and resonate. So it is the universal law of resonance. So because we actually use the language once again, we say, I'm strong tight. Isn't that gorgeous how we constantly describe ourselves in energy without understanding it? I'm charged up. I'm drained. Who's in charge here? Just think of it. We speak as energy beings that we are. And
Yeah.
so when you say, I'm tightly strung or I'm kind of loose today, you are describing the attunement what you're resonating with. So if your thoughts are of success, you're resonating the emotion of energy, your body being the electromagnetic field, then tunes in, and what you become aware of is the most optimal resonating opportunity. You have optYOUmize, right? Opt is choose you. It is also most optimal you. I don't think it's the highest opportunity you, right? It's just I love the name of your podcast for that reason. And so with
Right.
the law of resonance, it's so important to understand that what you resonate resonates with you, and who you resonate, you become. Les Brown interviewed me once, and he said, you work with all these advanced energy laws. And he said, now, how important is to know who you're with? And I said, listen, Les, you can walk into the ocean, and if you come out dry, you will be my guru, and I will sit at your feet to learn how environment doesn't affect you. Until then, he laughed and he said, I'm stealing it, I'm using it. Because I said, but until then, when you are surrounded by topics, people, subjects, you're resonating in their energy. And so that's just a very powerful thing that you've described. But there are two concepts. One is perception, and one is the law of resonance. And and for the faculty of perception, the four underlying laws. The very first one is the law of awareness. So once you start mastering the law of awareness, maybe a tip for today is notice what you notice, because what you notice is what you create. And notice how you notice. So if you are a single person and you're looking to create a loving relationship and you see a happy couple, notice what you notice. Do you notice that they're fighting and you're secretly happy? Or or are you thoroughly joyful for them? Or are you in a state of pity for you? Because what you notice and how you notice is the subconscious resonance of what you're creating in your life. A lot of people don't get it. A lot of people don't get it. And that's why they say the law of attraction doesn't work. They're not aware of what they're resonating out. So,
It's really fascinating. I love that concept. I'm gonna try to have that awareness because it's funny. Consciously, I consider myself to be a pretty aware person. I'm alert when I drive. I'm conscious of the idea of if I pull up in the right lane and I'm the first car and I'm going straight, I'm going to block the person behind me from being able to turn right. So I have a lot of awareness in terms of the sort of the day to day. But I love your awareness about the way that you feel about things, your reactions to various things, I think is really fascinating as well and really illuminating. So, I've heard you talk about surrendering to love. Can you explain what that means and how it shapes your approach to personal growth and healing?
yes. So for me, love is not just romantic love. For me, love stands for life originating vibrant emotion or energy in motion. So, love is something that creates all of life. And I say it's very simple. If it does not add to life, it's not love, no matter what a person says. So, if anything adds and extends life and expands life, it is love. And everything that damages it no longer is. And so, when your constant alignment is with how do I add to life, every moment breathing, you are living through love. Now, why surrender to love? So, I tell people, yes, I'm Ukrainian. We don't surrender well. You probably see it on the news. Surrender is not it's not a natural aspect that I can show off with. Just ask my husband. Surrender is just a foreign word for me. And so I had to understand it. And I mean, I went to a sacred place for me, which is my temple. And I was pondering and I was praying there, and I was like, okay, this whole thing of surrender, it's just wasted on me right here. Like, help me out here. Like, I'm looking for divine intuitive guidance. And in my language, what I've come to know is the spirit, but you could say intuition. I received a very clear spiritual answer, which was, you're sitting on the bench right now, lift up your feet. I'm like, I'm already plenty strange, it doesn't matter. So I'm lifting up my feet. And then the teaching comes in. You're now surrendering your weight to the bench. This is the power of surrender. When you trust the divine to carry your weight without you needing to constantly drag it around. And so we have launched the personal development, which says, you got this, you go do it. Yeah, that a boy, We took all of that and said, wait a minute, have we not all seen that after all you can do, there still could be complete nothing? That once you surrender your ego to a much greater purpose, once you surrender the accomplishment of the struggle, something, and I know that to be something, to be that powerful energy of love, opens you up to the opportunities that you couldn't have imagined. I used to do dream boards, I used to do vision boards, all important at some point. Then I started doing vision boards that were like, okay, show me what is to be manifested through me and I'll discover it. And I have to tell you, the last year has been a fascinating year. I had part of my chapter flown to the moon, literally on the rocket ship. I am in the movie. Like, you have these whole list of accomplishments that were not on my vision board. I mean, they were outside of my awareness. But because I surrendered completely to, I have a message of surrender to love that frees people into more peace, purpose, passion, and prosperity. I surrender to that daily. I'm guided every day. I look back and I'm like, what? That happened? I didn't visualize that, but I receive it, right? And so it's the most powerful concept I believe that there is. Surrendering your mind to the service of your heart when your heart is full of true, genuine power of love and of seeking an outcome that is healing and whole for all involved. And there's always one like that. So
It's amazing. Yeah. And I have to say, from my own perspective too, I see, you talk to people that are entrepreneurial or trying to build a business or whatever else, and the general attitude tends to be one, if I had to categorize it, before you've gotten to where you achieve the level of success or whatever it is that you want. A lot of people sort of look at it from a position of want, a position of need. And so their whole perspective is, well, I have to take care of me and get all of my stuff in order. Then I'm willing to share and give. And the irony is, the minute that you stop worrying about yourself and your own things that you want and need, and you start looking at other people and how you can serve them and contribute and lift them up, and it's amazing how that's actually transformative
Mhm.
in terms of what you're trying to get for yourself. So it's almost as though the more you help other people, the better your own circumstance gets, the more that you turn inward and try to avoid everything and just, and I mean, like I said, one of my biggest regrets is I didn't focus enough on the relationship side of things. So not only did I miss out on the richness of connecting with other people more, but it also made my life and my journey a lot harder, because there were people that had answers, there were people that had assets and all these other things, and there were people that we could have done joint ventures and all these other things that would have been, you know, um, much more beneficial for me, but I never saw them because my focus was always that, oh, I've got to get stuff done. Like that's the way that I was taught and thought and brought up, that it's all about like what you physically get done. It's not about the rest of it. And so it is amazing how when you change your perspective and you change the way that you approach everything, everything else around you changes with it as well.
You know, Brett, there is a tragedy, I believe, in our culture that has split concept of love. We actually have love others and self-love, and that is the tragedy because when love is, it is. And when you truly you love you and others with the same intensity. And I think for many years, what was happening is that we had patterns of self sacrifice, which was in love, which was, I will do anything for everyone, and I lose myself to it. And that was more of a resentment building process. It was not love. And then now we've turned around and the society has become narcissistic under the name of love. Self-love, self-care, and it's like it's the wrong self. And so love, true love, is not based on pity. It's based on compassion. And so what is the difference? I've learned this lesson 20 years ago. The awareness came later, but actually 20, 30 years ago almost. I was in India, and my husband was there on a business trip, and I came there with him. And he was busy, and I went to a small Catholic parish, actually, of all places, that their service was to educate children. And there were children from the slums. And I very rarely share this story because I get very emotional with it. And these are the kids that in the morning go steal, the teenage girls that go prostitute as a way to feed themselves and their families. And then in the afternoon, the bus collects them, brings them into the parish, and they get educated in three topics: English, math, and world. World is everything that's not English and math. And they were divided into two groups. I don't remember the exact ages, but the younger group and the older group. And they were given these t-shirts. Younger group had one color, older group had the other color. So we got to sit with the younger group, and I'm sitting behind this little kid. There's no indoor plumbing, by the way, so he raises his hand to run outside to the bushes to go to the bathroom, or so I think. He runs out, he runs right back in, he sits in front of me on the bench, and within seconds, his little fist with dirt under his fingers, he doesn't look back, he stretches his fist behind his back over my lap, and he opens his fist, and out comes a rosebud from a wild rose bush. No, I have it right there. And I'm sitting there, and I'm learning that I'm sitting there, and up till that moment I was pitying him. I saw him as a less than, and I'm being chastised by great divine intelligence. Do you see? his powerful spirit. Do you see who he is? Who are you to pity him? Learn to love him. That has shifted everything for me. That became a journey of the only way I can empower somebody is if I remember their power and I see them as an equal, not greater than, there's no worship, no less than, there's no pity. There's an equal, empowering compassion. And with that same concept, looking at myself and saying, we got to stop the poor me games. There's nothing to pity here. And so that is to me the point of freedom, the point of breaking through, and the point of beginning of love. Then and only then, when you no longer pity self or anybody around you, you break through into freedom of learning to love.
Well, that's really powerful. What an amazing story, too. Wow, thanks for sharing that. Whew. So for someone who feels stuck or feels overwhelmed, what can they do? How can they start breakthrough? What resources can they tap into to be able to start to make a transformation for themselves?
I'm going to start with two resources, and it's interesting. One is not something I normally mention, but if you go to our site, you2shine.com, you will see there are different journeys to freedom. We're very big on quantum leap to joy and freedom. One of those is freedom through forgiveness. When you go there, you will find an absolutely free resource that is called Forgiveness Letter. I really feel that somebody who's listening to it right now, they're blocking themselves from receiving so much because they're unable to forgive. Because forgiving is forgiving. It's forgiving what blocks your capacity to receive into the light of Creator and opening yourself to receive. So that's the absolutely free resource that is on the site, the letter of forgiveness. You open it, you follow the instructions. For some reason, it really is the first time I'm bringing it up because I feel it's so important. Then the second resource that'll help everyone is if you go to mygiftoffer.com, you will receive a labor of love of 2 decades, which is a free Quantum Leap ebook. That ebook has 50 quantum leaps, 50 limiting beliefs, and 50 corresponding reprogrammed empowering beliefs, and a 12-minute free me EFT video that takes you through one of them. I'm not worthy of love. So you can then follow it through all of them. That is mygiftoffer.com. It is a very powerful source. Now, I always tell people this is a business, so don't be shocked when you get the free thing. There will be a pop-up selling something. Please don't act all surprised or offended. If you want to receive the book, please receive the book. You're under no obligation. But the very first pop-up there is actually 8 videos of 35 universal laws of money. That was recorded over 8 months. It's based on the book. I mean, it became an inspiration for Prosper Me book. That's a #1 bestseller in 49 countries. It is from the foundation of our app. We don't sell that program anywhere but that site. You have to be a member of our subscription to have access to it otherwise. We've priced it at $97. So I always tell people, grab your free resource. Use it, lean into it. If it's in your budget, I don't believe in going into debt for self-empowerment. That's BS. I'm sorry. Just gonna say it. Just don't do it. If you can't afford it, don't do it. Go make money, then reinvest it into you. I was just gonna say it. But if you have the $97, I promise you, and it's 100% money back guarantee, as you listen to those and you start applying those principles, everything for you will start shifting. So yeah, those are resources.
Perfect. Thanks for that. All right, I have one last question I have to ask because I think it's important. I'm always interested to know what everyone's going to say, and that is, what's your #1 tip for success as a business owner or an entrepreneur?
It would be surrender to love. If
Yeah, I
it's not
think so.
loving, if it's not loving, don't do it. No amount of money, no amount of success, no amount of expansion. If it is not loving, don't do it. And ask yourself, what would love do? What's the most loving outcome I can do here and now?
It's really simple, but really profound. I love that advice. So that's perfect. Thanks a lot for that. All right, with that, it's just about time to wrap things up. I want to thank you again so much, Victoria, for sharing all your insights and great tips with us. Visit mygiftoffer.com to get a free ebook to break through 50 of the most limiting and sabotaging patterns and mindset programs to experience true transformation. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And as always, remember no matter what you want from your business and your life, don't compromise, optimize.